Logan Walker had no idea that the woman struggling with a jammed dryer at the corner laundromat was the CEO of a billion-dollar tech company. He just saw someone who needed help. "Here, let me try," Logan said, stepping forward with his 7-year-old daughter, Sophie, in tow. The woman looked up, visibly flustered, her long dark coat streaked with rain and her hair damp from the downpour outside. "I think it ate my quarters," she muttered, her voice low but annoyed. "This machine's a menace." Logan crouched down, jiggled the metal panel, and gave the side of the dryer a light thud with his fist. The machine buzzed back to life. He turned with a small grin. "It's got attitude. You just have to talk to it." The woman blinked, surprised. Then she laughed a clear, unguarded sound. "You fixed it." Sophie tugged his sleeve. "Daddy's like a superhero. He fixes everything." Logan ruffled his daughter's hair and smiled at the woman. "It's no big deal. These machines, and I go way back. I basically live here." The woman crouched to load her clothes into the now working dryer. "I'm Olivia Kent, Logan Walker, and this is Sophie." Sophie gave a small wave, then returned to her coloring book on the bench. Olivia studied him for a moment. He wore a simple gray hoodie, jeans, and his sneakers had clearly seen better days. There was a tiredness in his eyes, but also kindness. Grounded. Solid. "You live in the area?" she asked. "Yeah, just a few blocks down. Not the fanciest part of town, but it's home." "You?" She hesitated, then smiled. "Just moved into a temporary place nearby. My building's getting some renovations." That wasn't a lie, technically. She had temporarily moved into one of her penthouses across town while her main residence, an ultra-modern estate in the hills, was undergoing upgrades. But she didn't feel like explaining that she was the CEO and founder of Kent Tech, a company that had just closed a multi-billion-dollar deal with a Japanese conglomerate. Not here. Not while she was wearing sweatpants and wrestling with a broken dryer. They talked while the machines hummed. Logan told her about Sophie's obsession with dinosaurs, his job at a local auto shop, and how he worked nights sometimes to make rent. He didn't speak with bitterness, more like quiet acceptance. Olivia found it disarming. "You do all this on your own?" she asked softly. He nodded. "Her mom left when Sophie was 2. Haven't seen her since. I wouldn't trade a single second, though. Sophie's everything." Olivia's chest tightened. She'd met men with ambition, with money, with charm, but none who lit up when they talked about their kids. When her dryer finally stopped, she pulled out her clothes, folded them quickly. Logan stood and offered to carry her basket to her car. "I'm good," she said, then glanced out at the pouring rain. "Actually, maybe I'll take you up on that." He grinned and took the basket, walking beside her into the rain. The car she led him to was a sleek matte black SUV, clearly expensive, but Logan didn't comment. He loaded the laundry into the back and stepped away. "Thanks again," Olivia said, brushing wet hair from her cheek. "No problem. Hope the dryer behaves next time." She opened the door, paused, then turned. "Hey, do you two ever go out on Saturdays? Like for pizza or something?" Logan raised an eyebrow. "Occasionally. Depends how the week goes." She smiled, this time a little shyly. "Well, if you're up for it, maybe we could all grab a slice sometime. My treat." He blinked, surprised. "You want to take me and my daughter out for pizza?" "Only if you like pizza." He chuckled. "Who doesn't?" Sophie peeked from under Logan's arm. "Can I come too?" Olivia grinned. "You're the guest of honor." Logan gave a slow nod, still trying to figure her out. "All right. Saturday, then." "Great. I'll meet you here?" "Sure. Around 5. She nodded and got into her car, the engine humming softly as she pulled away. Logan stood in the rain for a second longer, then looked down at Sophie. "Did we just get asked out by a woman with a car that costs more than our apartment?" Sophie grinned. "She was pretty. You should marry her." Logan laughed and shook his head. "Let's start with pizza first, kid." Saturday came fast. Logan made sure Sophie was clean, dressed, and had her hair in the braid she'd insisted on. He wore his cleanest shirt, still a little faded, and jeans that didn't have any stains. They waited at the laundromat. Olivia arrived 5 minutes early, dressed in jeans, a navy cashmere sweater, and ankle boots. She looked casual, but elegant. She carried herself differently from anyone Logan knew, like she didn't have to prove anything to anyone. They walked to a pizza place a few blocks down. Olivia insisted on ordering a full spread, garlic knots, sodas, 3 different pizzas. Sophie was in heaven. Olivia talked to her like she was the most important person in the room, and Logan watched in awe as Sophie lit up. "You're different than most people," Logan said quietly once Sophie went to the bathroom. "How so?" "You listen. You don't just talk to fill space. You actually care." She looked at him for a long second. "So do you. You're a good dad." "That's rare." "Yeah, well, I try." They had dinner, laughed, and walked back in the cold night air. Olivia's fingers brushed his as they walked. He didn't pull away. When they reached the laundromat parking lot, Sophie climbed into her dad's arms and leaned her head on his shoulder. "She's sleepy," Logan said. "Thanks for tonight." "She had a blast." "I did too," Olivia said, voice soft. There was a pause. Wind rustling. Streetlights flickering above. "You're not like anyone I've ever met, Logan." He tilted his head. "That a good thing?" "It is," she said, eyes locked on his. "It really is." He didn't kiss her. Not yet. But he wanted to. And when she got into her car and drove away, he stood there for a long time, heart beating faster than it had in years. Sophie stirred in his arms. "I like her." Logan smiled. "Yeah, me too." By the following Wednesday, Olivia couldn't get Logan out of her mind. She'd had 3 investor calls, 2 board meetings, and a last-minute keynote speech at a tech innovation conference, and through every single one, her focus splintered each time she thought about the man who helped her with a dryer and looked at his daughter like she was the son. She'd been in relationships before, but they were always calculated. Men who understood her schedule, her world, her routine. Logan didn't fit into any of that, which, somehow, made her ache to see him again. She pulled up outside the auto shop just after 4. It was a small brick building tucked between a pawn shop and a closed-down bakery. A hand-painted sign read, "Jackson and Sons Auto Repair." The parking lot was cracked, the windows dusty, but the garage door was open, and inside, Logan stood beneath the hood of an old truck, grease on his forearms and his brow furrowed in concentration. He didn't see her at first. "Hey," she called, stepping carefully around a puddle near the curb. Logan looked up, startled. His face softened the moment he recognized her. "Olivia?" "I was in the neighborhood," she said, brushing hair behind her ear. "Thought I'd say hi." He wiped his hands on a rag and walked over. "Didn't expect to see you here. Didn't expect to be here. But then I remembered how good that pepperoni pizza was." He chuckled, nodding toward the truck. "You caught me mid-carburetor surgery. Not the most glamorous moment." She stepped closer, glancing at the engine. "I wouldn't know the difference between a carburetor and a toaster." "You'd be surprised how many people say that." "Still," she said, folding her arms, "you know what you're doing. It's impressive." "Thanks," he said, then paused. "You sure you're just in the neighborhood?" She looked at him for a beat, then smiled. "No. I came because I wanted to see you again." The air shifted. Logan looked down, then back at her. "I've been thinking about you too." She felt her heart catch. "I was starting to wonder if I imagined the connection." "You didn't." He glanced behind him, then added, "I'm off in an hour. Sophie's with my neighbor for a bit. We could grab something if you're hungry." "I'm always hungry." They ended up at a tiny taco stand 3 blocks from the garage. No seating, just a counter and a few plastic stools under a flickering neon sign. Logan ordered for both of them, and they sat on the curb, eating from paper trays. "You don't seem like the type who eats street tacos," he teased, watching her take a bite. She wiped a napkin across her mouth. "You don't seem like the type who quotes Rumi." He gave her a sideways look. "I don't." She grinned. "Just guessing. But you've got the depth for it." He took a sip from his soda. "You're full of surprises." "Is that bad?" "No," he said, his tone more serious now. "Just means I don't know where to place you. You show up out of nowhere, take my daughter to dinner, ask about my life. But you're holding something back." She stiffened. Logan noticed. "I didn't mean that as an accusation. Just something about you doesn't quite add up." "I know." He waited. She didn't speak. Instead, she pulled her knees up, resting her arms on them. "I've spent the last few years building something that most people don't even believe is real. Long nights, no sleep, pressure from every direction. I've missed birthdays, lost friendships, let people down. But I've never regretted building it." "Building what?" She looked at him. "A company. My company." He studied her face. "What kind of company?" She hesitated, then said, "Tech." He raised an eyebrow. "You're a developer?" "No," she said softly. "I'm the founder." His head tilted. "You run your own business?" "I do," she said. "It's big. Bigger than most people realize." He didn't ask how big. He didn't ask for a name. And that's when her chest tightened again. "Does that scare you?" she asked. "No," he said almost instantly. "What scares me is how fast I'm falling for someone I barely know." She blinked. "I didn't expect this," he continued. "Didn't expect you. But Sophie talks about you like you painted the sky. And I can't stop thinking about you either. So no, I'm not scared of what you do. I'm scared of what it means if this goes nowhere." Olivia looked away, her throat tight. "I don't know how to do this the normal way." "I don't need normal," he said. "I just need honest." She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small card, folded in half. "This is a pass. For a tech summit I'm hosting tomorrow. VIP access. I want you to come." He took it, turning it over in his hand. "You'll see everything," she said. "No filters. No hiding. But if you come, you'll know who I really am." He looked her in the eye. "You want me to come into your world?" "I do." He nodded slowly. "Then I'm in." She exhaled, almost in relief. "I'll have someone meet you at the entrance. Bring Sophie if you want. Or don't. Whatever feels right." He stood, helping her up from the curb. "If you're showing me your world, then I'm bringing mine too." They walked back to the shop in silence, side by side. When they reached the lot, Olivia paused. "I'm glad you fixed that dryer," she said. He looked at her, voice low. "You're not the only one." She touched his hand just for a moment, then turned and walked to her car. Logan watched her go, heart pounding. He didn't fully understand what he was stepping into, but he'd never been more certain of anything in his life. The Kent Tech Innovation Summit was already in full swing when Logan stepped through the glass doors of the downtown event center, Sophie's small hand held firmly in his. He adjusted the collar of his only blazer borrowed from his boss and surveyed the sprawling atrium. Above them, a massive digital screen cycled between images of cutting-edge devices, AI prototypes, and sleek branding, all under one name: Kent Tech. A string quartet played softly beneath a glowing chandelier made of sculpted steel and glass. Servers in crisp uniforms offered flutes of champagne and trays of tiny hors d'oeuvres. Logan's calloused hands twitched at his sides, and he couldn't help but notice how out of place his scuffed boots looked on the polished marble floors. Sophie, however, was enchanted. "Daddy, look. That robot just moved its hand." He followed her gaze toward a demo station where a humanoid robot waved at passing guests. Before he could respond, a tall man in a dark suit approached. "Mr. Walker, the man asked, offering a polite nod. Miss Kent asked me to escort you. Logan hesitated a beat.
Right.
Lead the way. They were ushered past crowds of executives and tech journalists, through a private corridor lined with LED panels displaying company milestones. Sophie clutched his hand tighter as they passed a door marked Executive Access Only. Inside, the room was quiet, modern, and expansive. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city skyline. And near the far end, Olivia stood in a navy sheath dress, her hair pulled back, her expression unreadable. She turned the moment she saw them. You made it, she said, walking toward them in heels that clicked against the tile. You weren't kidding, Logan said, scanning the space. This is another world. Olivia knelt to Sophie's level. Hey, superstar. You look amazing. Sophie beamed. Thank you. Daddy let me wear my sparkly shoes. Well, they're perfect, Olivia said, then stood. Can I show you something? Logan followed her to a side wall where a touchscreen display illuminated the history of Kent Tech. Articles, photos, and news clips scrolled past. Olivia at age 22 accepting her first patent, a ribbon-cutting ceremony for a research facility in Berlin, a Forbes cover naming her one of the most influential women in tech. He stared at it all for a long moment. You built this. Yes. And you could have led with this. The car, the clothes, the media. But you didn't. I didn't want to be a title to you, Olivia said. I wanted to be a person. He didn't speak right away, then finally said, You are. But this is a hell of a curveball. She exhaled, walking to the window. I've had people pretend not to care about what I do just long enough to get something out of it. I've had men tell me they admire my independence, then try to shrink it. I've been used, misjudged, and written off more times than I can count. So when I met you and saw how you looked at Sophie, I thought, maybe, for once, I could just be a woman who helped fix a dryer. Logan came to stand beside her. And you didn't think that telling me all this would make me feel like I was standing on a different planet? I did, she admitted. But I also knew if I waited too long, it'd turn into a lie. Sophie tugged his jacket. Daddy, can we see the robot again? He crouched beside her. In a minute, honeys. Then he looked up at Olivia. I'm not intimidated by your world, he said. I'm trying to figure out if there's a place for me in it. There is, she said. But I don't want to drag you into something that doesn't feel right for you. That's not fair to you or Sophie. Logan rose. You think I care about bank accounts and glass walls? I've spent the last few years making sure my daughter never notices we eat the same 3 meals a week. I've worked every shift I could get my hands on. What I care about is whether or not I can trust the person I bring into her life. Olivia met his eyes. You can. A quiet moment passed between them. Then she said, There's something else I didn't tell you. He crossed his arms. More surprises? I've been offered a position that would move me to London. It's a joint venture, very high level. I haven't accepted it yet.
He stiffened.
Are you going? I don't know. When would you leave? 3 weeks. Sophie wandered toward the robot exhibit again, her sparkly shoes tapping on the floor. Logan ran a hand through his hair. So, what is this then? A goodbye? No, Olivia said. It's a decision. One I wanted to make with all the facts in front of me. He stared at her. You really don't do anything halfway, do you? I don't know how. He gave a short laugh, but there was no humor in it. So, what? Now I'm supposed to just say I'm fine with you maybe leaving the country? No, she said. I'm not asking you to be fine with it. I'm asking you to be honest with me. He looked toward the glass, where Sophie pressed a button on the robot's panel and giggled as it waved again. I don't know what any of this means, he said finally. But I know that when you're around, my daughter is happier. I'm happier. So, if you're asking me whether I want to be part of your life, even if it's complicated, the answer is yes. Olivia stepped closer. Even if I don't have all the answers yet? Especially then. She reached for his hand. I don't want to walk away from this. From you. He tightened his fingers around hers. Then don't. Outside, the lights dimmed as a keynote announcement began echoing through the event center. Olivia turned to him. I have to go on stage for 20 minutes. Will you stay? He gave a dry grin. Only if I get to brag later that I dated the woman who gave that speech. She leaned in, brushed her lips against his cheek. Deal. As she walked toward the stage entrance, a staff member approached Logan with a smile. Mr. Walker, Ms. Kent reserved a private lounge for you and your daughter. This way, please. He followed, glancing back once before Olivia disappeared behind the curtain. Sophie tugged his hand as they followed the staffer. Daddy? Is she a princess? Logan smiled. Something like that. But even as he said it, he felt the weight of what came next settling in his chest. This wasn't just an invitation into her world. It was a question, and both of them were still waiting on the answer. The morning sunlight filtered through the kitchen window, casting a golden glow over the modest countertops and worn tile of Logan's apartment. Olivia sat at the table across from Sophie, helping her carefully glue the last yellow paper star onto a cardboard solar system. Venus is the hot one, Sophie announced, her tongue poking out in concentration. Olivia nodded. That's exactly right. And Earth is where we get pizza. Sophie giggled and held up the finished model for Logan to see as he set a steaming mug of coffee in front of Olivia. She made it all herself, he said, glancing at the carefully painted planets. With a little help. Sophie looked proud. Daddy helped me cut out Mars. He said it was a team effort. Olivia met his eyes. That sounds familiar. He took the chair beside her, his expression unreadable. She could tell something was building in him. Something he hadn't said yet. Everything all right? She asked. He hesitated. I talked to Sophie's school this morning. They offered her a partial scholarship to a private academy downtown. One of the teachers submitted her space project from last semester to some enrichment program. They want to meet her. Olivia blinked. Logan, that's incredible. It is, he said, but his voice was subdued. But they don't cover transportation, or lunches, or uniforms, and I'd have to shift my hours, which means cutting back at the shop. I can help, she said immediately. He looked at her steady. And I believe you want to. But I need you to understand something, Olivia. I've done everything I can to make sure Sophie knows she's safe and loved. That she can count on me. And if I start depending on you for the big things, what happens if you change your mind? She didn't flinch. Then you hold me accountable. You don't let me disappear when it gets hard. He leaned back, folding his arms. You're not used to needing anyone, are you? No. But I'm not afraid of it anymore. A beat passed. Sophie had wandered to the living room, humming softly as she arranged her new solar system on the bookshelf. Olivia reached across the table, her fingers brushing the top of his hand. You asked me if there was a place for you in my world, but I never asked if I could be part of yours. He looked down at their hands. You're already in it, she swallowed. Then let me help. Not because I pity you. Not to fix anything, but because I care about her. And you. He exhaled slowly. I didn't expect this when I walked into that laundromat. I didn't expect you either. A knock sounded at the door before he could respond. Logan stood and opened it to find a delivery driver holding a long black case. Walker residence? The man asked. That's us. The driver handed it over, then left with a polite nod. Logan carried the case to the table and popped it open. Inside lay a telescope, sleek, silver, with a hand-stitched leather grip and high-resolution lenses. Olivia rose, already knowing what it was. I ordered it last night, she said. For Sophie. She mentioned she'd never looked through a real one. Logan stared at it, then looked up. This probably costs more than my car. It's not about the cost. Sophie peeked back into the kitchen. Is that for me? Olivia crouched beside her. It is. Do you want to look at the stars tonight? Sophie clasped her hands together. Yes. Can we go to the park? There's no buildings in the way there. Logan watched them, something shifting in his chest. Not just admiration. Not just affection. Trust. Later that night, they set up the telescope on a small hill overlooking the park's dark field. Sophie adjusted the lens, letting out a delighted gasp when she found Jupiter. You can see its stripes, she shouted. Olivia laughed and wrapped an arm around Logan's, her head resting against his shoulder. She's going to remember this forever. I hope so. They stood in silence for a while, stars flickering above them in the calm night sky. You still haven't told me what you're going to do about London, he said finally. I turned it down this morning. He turned to her, startled. What? I called the board and declined the offer. I told them I wasn't going to step away from something that finally feels real. His voice was low. Are you sure? I've spent years building a future I thought I was supposed to want. And then I met you. And suddenly I didn't care about being in the right rooms with the right people. I cared about movie nights with Sophie, about tacos on a sidewalk, about someone who sees me as more than a headline. He didn't speak. So she turned to face him fully. I love you. His breath caught. I love how fiercely you protect your daughter. I love the way you listen. I love that you made me believe in something simple and honest when I thought I'd forgotten how. He didn't hesitate. Then marry me. Her eyes widened. He stepped forward, pulling a small velvet box from his coat pocket. I know we haven't done this the traditional way. I know we're different. But I also know I've never been more certain of anything in my life. She stared at the ring, simple, elegant, with a thin platinum band and a single diamond. When did you get this? 3 days ago. I saw it in a shop window on my lunch break. I didn't even think. I just walked in. She blinked rapidly. Logan. Say yes, he said. Not because of the telescope, or the summit, or the fact that our lives look nothing alike. Say yes because you want to build something that's ours. Sophie looked up from the telescope. Are you going to be my mom now? Olivia laughed, tears slipping down her cheeks. If that's all right with you. Sophie nodded like it was the most obvious thing in the world. I already decided. Olivia turned back to Logan, her voice trembling. Yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and the moment their lips met, the stars above them looked close enough to touch. And for the first time in both their lives, home wasn't a place. It was each other. 3 months later, Logan stood on the stone terrace of their new home, an ivy-covered estate tucked into a quiet hillside just beyond the city. It wasn't ostentatious, not like the penthouse Olivia had left behind, but it was full of light, surrounded by trees, and had a backyard big enough for Sophie to run wild. That morning, she'd already christened it with a chalk-drawn solar system on the patio tiles and was now off with Olivia's assistant, Rachel, who had insisted on taking her out for ice cream and a bookstore run to celebrate the universe. Inside, Olivia was pacing the sun-drenched foyer, barefoot, hair still damp from a shower, dressed in a soft blue robe that draped just below her knees. You're going to wear a hole in the floor, Logan said, leaning against the doorframe with a half-eaten apple in hand. She stopped and turned to him, eyes wide. They're late. You said they'd probably run behind. Still. It's her first real feature. I want it to go well. It's not her first real feature, he said, walking over and pressing a kiss to her temple. It's just the first time she's letting someone else write it. Olivia exhaled. You're right. I usually am. You usually are not. He grinned. You married me anyway. The doorbell rang. Olivia let out a soft gasp and turned so fast she nearly tripped over the corner of the rug. Logan caught her elbow before she could topple. Easy. They're journalists, not the Avengers. She opened the door to a woman with a camera bag slung across her shoulder and a man carrying a notepad and recorder. "Miss Kent?" the man asked. "Just Olivia," she said, stepping aside. "Come in." The interview was for a feature in a publication Olivia had long respected, one that had spent more time dissecting ethics in technology than fawning over net worths. She'd agreed to it only after they promised to focus on her newest project, a free educational platform for underserved communities, funded privately and quietly, with no Kent Tech branding. Logan watched from the hallway as Olivia spoke, her posture open but grounded, her voice steady, without its usual armor. She mentioned the work they were doing with rural schools, the satellite learning centers being piloted in Alaska and parts of New Mexico. What she didn't mention, not once, was the summit, the London offer, or her net worth. When the reporter finally asked about her personal life, Olivia glanced toward the hallway. Logan stepped into view, one hand in his pocket, and crossed the room to stand beside her. "I met someone who reminded me that building something meaningful doesn't always require a boardroom," she said, slipping her hand into his. "And you, Mr. Walker?" the reporter asked. "How do you feel about being married to one of the most powerful women in the industry?" Logan shrugged. "I mainly just make pancakes and fix things." Olivia laughed. He's being modest. When the crew finally left, promising to send a draft before publication, Olivia sagged against Logan's chest. "I hate talking about myself." "You didn't. You talked about what matters to you." "That's still me." He leaned down, brushing her lips with his. "Exactly." Later that evening, as golden light spilled through the windows, Logan stood in the kitchen stirring a pot of tomato basil soup while Olivia sat on the counter flipping through a stack of letters from the learning center managers. Sophie barreled through the front door moments later, arms full of books and cheeks flushed from sugar and excitement. "I got one on black holes. And one about how astronauts sleep." Olivia hopped down and caught her in a hug. "Can I borrow the astronaut one?" Sophie grinned. "Only if you read it with me." After dinner, they curled up on the couch, Sophie between them with her head resting on Olivia's leg and her feet in Logan's lap. The telescope sat by the sliding doors, already pointed at the stars. "I want to name a constellation," Sophie declared. "What would you call it?" Logan asked. She thought for a moment. "The Family Star." Olivia smiled. "Then it's official. From now on, we follow the Family Star." They stayed there long after Sophie drifted off, her breathing slow and even. Logan tucked a blanket around her, then turned to Olivia. "You know, I was supposed to have everything figured out before I let anyone in." She traced the edge of his jaw with her fingers. "I didn't expect anyone would want to stay if they saw the whole picture." "I saw it," he said. "And I'm still here." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, neatly folded piece of paper. "I've been holding on to this." She opened it, brows lifting. It was a simple sketch, drawn in pencil. A little house, a telescope on the deck, 2 stick figures and a third smaller one, all under a sky full of stars. "I drew it with Sophie last week," he said. "She said it was her future." Olivia looked up at him, eyes glistening. "Then let's make sure it is." And they did. In the months that followed, Olivia's education platform launched in 8 states. Logan started a mobile repair service, hiring 2 of his old coworkers and converting a van into a traveling garage. Sophie won a regional science fair with a project on gravitational waves, and her acceptance letter to the academy arrived with a scholarship extension that covered everything. They hosted weekend dinners with neighbors, planted a garden that never quite grew straight, and spent every clear night under the stars. No secrets, no headlines, just the kind of life built day by day, one honest choice at a time. And beneath the Family Star, they stayed together, grounded, and entirely in love.